So I don't think we're going to run out of questions. We will finish a little bit early to give the candidates more time to go to their table so you can keep talking to them and ask them other questions that maybe I don't get to, because I don't know that we'll be able to get to all of them. Please do not make comments. We're trying to be respectful of everybody. If I do end up having to go to the audience for questions, please wait until I point to you and recognize you before you speak. And again, we're not trying to hear comments, we're trying to hear questions. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand and I can call on you. And if you start not asking your question, we're going to stop that, because one of the other candidate forums I had, there was somebody that just said words and there was no question in there, and trying to figure out what he was trying to say was kind of difficult. So with that, we're going to go ahead and give a round of applause to our candidates. We're also going to be rotating. So the first question, Attorney General Bailey will answer, and then the second question will start off with Mr. Will Scharf, and so on and so forth. And but we're going to give them 5 minutes to introduce themselves. So this is just an introduction. Afterwards, they'll get 5 minutes to tell us why they're running and what they hope to accomplish. All right? We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Andrew Bailey.
Hey, I appreciate that. It is such a pleasure to be here and a privilege to be serving as your Attorney General here in the state of Missouri. I want you to know that I am a Christian, I'm a father, and I'm a veteran. And those three things, that experience and my faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, guides everything that I do in leadership, in a leadership role here in the state of Missouri. I'm serving as Attorney General because this is home. And I care about allowing my children to grow up in a place that enjoys freedom, safety, and prosperity. I got to enjoy those things as a young child in Missouri, and I want my 4 children to be able to enjoy that. I want your children and your grandchildren to be able to enjoy that. And that's why this job is so important to me and why I take it so seriously. I grew up in mid-Missouri, and in 1999, I went to the University of Missouri on an Army ROTC scholarship. The plan was always to go to law school, but 9/11 happened, and those plans changed. I volunteered for a combat arms branch of service, was trained on tanks at Fort Knox, Kentucky, reported my first duty station. They told me I was going to have to stay behind, and my unit was deploying to Iraq. And I called a friend of mine that I'd been in tank school with, and he was a prior service enlisted soldier, and he had a wife and kids. And I said, Darren, I want you to trade with me. You've already deployed in the war on terror. It's my turn. And so I talked him into swapping me out. And so he stayed behind on rear detachment, and I deployed to Iraq. And I tell you, that was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with my mother. We just reconciled this Mother's Day, so everything's good now. But as you can imagine, tough conversation to have with the mom. So I deployed to Iraq. I'm stationed in the Nineveh province. Y'all remember the Nineveh province from the Old Testament. And 180 soldiers living in tents. It was all male at the time, all male branch service. Had 30 soldiers, 6 Bradley fighting vehicles, and usually 2 platoons of Iraqis that I was responsible for. We secured the small town we were in for the constitutional referendum. So I've seen what secure elections look like. We secured the Syrian border. We screened that border and made sure the bad guys weren't bringing humans and drugs and guns across that border. So I've seen what a secure border looks like. And my platoon was selected to participate in the largest offensive operation of 2005 in the city of Tal Afar, Iraq, which you'll remember from 2 Kings as Talasser. That city still exists. It's Tal Afar, Iraq. It had been overrun by insurgents. We built an earthen berm around the city. We garrisoned the berm. We evacuated civilians. And then we fought city block by city block into the middle of town, clearing house by house, dwelling by dwelling, to get rid of the threat to the freedom, safety, and prosperity of Tal Afar, Iraq. And we were successful. Came home from that deployment. They moved my unit to Fort Hood, Texas. We drew all new equipment, all new soldiers, trained for a year, deployed right back to Iraq for a second time. Second deployment was 15 months long, 455 days. And after 2 Thanksgivings, 2 Christmases in a row, I'm a company commander, 13 platoons, 300 soldiers under my responsibility. And I was ready to come home. Moved to the city of St. Louis, and I worked as an armed guard at a courthouse in North St. Louis. So I went from commanding 13 platoons in combat to wearing a revolver at the front door of the courthouse. And there were times I thought that I might have been safer in Iraq than North City, St. Louis. But went back to Mizzou on the post-9/11 GI Bill, so paid for my school in blood, sweat, and tears in service to my nation. It was a privilege to get to defend my country, fight for freedom, and lead soldiers in combat. And those are real-life leadership and management skills I bring with me today. Went back to Mizzou, and all I ever wanted to do was be a prosecuting attorney. My grandfather had worked in law enforcement. He used to take me to court with him to watch him testify. And so I thought working with cops to lock bad guys up was about the coolest job on earth. And so I went to work as an assistant attorney general doing special prosecution all over the state of Missouri. Married a gal from Texas that I had met when I was in the Army there. She was ready for me to be at home at night, so we settled in Warren County, Missouri, where I was an assistant prosecutor. And working with law enforcement to hold bad guys accountable and find justice for victims was the ultimate opportunity for me and a job I absolutely loved. Would have done that job for the rest of my life. But as an attorney, a prosecuting attorney in a third-class county, you end up having a couple different jobs to make ends meet. So I was also the attorney for the county juvenile office, and it was in that capacity that I came across kids that didn't have a home to go to for Christmas. And that just about killed me. So my wife and I became foster parents. We've adopted 3 kiddos out of the foster system. My oldest 2 were 3 and 2 when we met them, and the children's division introduced us at a Burger King. So my kids think that children come from Burger King. Most recently, we've had a biological child that turns 2 next week. So we're running a soft Tampa 2 cover zone defense, kind of bend, don't break, keep everything in front of you at the house on the home front. But getting to be a dad's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and that's why I'm so invested in this state. Not only is it home for me, but it's where I've chosen to raise my family. So all of a sudden, I was looking at my bills, realized I couldn't afford to be an assistant prosecuting attorney in a third-class county anymore, went to work at Missouri Department of Corrections on June 1st, 2018, the day Governor Parson took office. Happened to be at the right place at the right time. He pulled me up to be on staff with him and then saw fit to appoint me to the Attorney General's office when Eric Schmidt was elected to the United States Senate. And in the last 16, 17 months, I kind of lose track of time, we've done a lot of fighting and winning for Missourians. Between getting rid of the Soros-backed prosecutor in the city of St. Louis, to shutting down the transgender child mutilation clinics in the state of Missouri, to fighting back against Planned Parenthood's cult of death against women and children, to increasing criminal prosecution by 133% statewide, to fighting the Biden administration, the biggest First Amendment suit in this nation's history. More than 30 lawsuits against the Biden administration to try to protect our freedom, our safety, our prosperity. It has been a privilege to serve in this capacity. We haven't hit our ceiling yet. We've got more fighting and winning to do for Missourians. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Look forward to answering your questions.
Good evening, y'all. My name's Will Scharf. I'm running to be your next Attorney General. You know, Missouri's a deep red state. We talk about this all the time. We voted for President Trump by 19 points in 2016. Every statewide office holder is a Republican. We have supermajorities in both houses of our legislature. And yet, what have we gotten from our Republican supermajorities in Jefferson City? We have a capital city that is totally in hock to a very narrow set of lobbyists and special interests and insiders. And they are the ones who run the show, not our elected representatives. We have a state budget that's practically doubled in the last 5 years. We have streets overrun with crime. We have woke garbage being peddled in our schools, while less than 1 in 4 8th graders are proficient in math and reading. We have a culture of failure and corruption in Jefferson City. And if we do not break that, if we do not fundamentally break from the past, we're going to keep getting more of the same. And to me, more of the same is absolutely unacceptable. So I've never run for office before. I'm not a political insider. I'm not a Jefferson City guy. What I am is a constitutional attorney. Currently, I have one client. His name is Donald J. Trump, and I've fought for him in courtrooms across America, all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. Thank you. Elad's crew is not so happy with that. Before that, I was a federal violent crime prosecutor in St. Louis. I led over 100 federal felony cases. There are people sitting in prison today for hundreds of years because I put them there, and I'm proud of the work that I did. We locked up fentanyl dealers, armed robbers, carjackers. We did gang interdiction work in North St. Louis. I worked with the U.S. Marshal Service on fugitive apprehension. Before that, I was a conservative activist. I was on the teams that confirmed Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court. Those were 2 of the toughest fights the conservative movement has had in decades. But because we took on those fights, because we didn't shrink from those fights, we've built the most conservative U.S. Supreme Court in a century, and we've been able to overturn Roe versus Wade, stand up for the Second Amendment, stand up for religious liberty, overturn race-based affirmative action, and finally get our federal government back on track constitutionally, back to the system that our framers intended. I'm not a political insider, but I am absolutely committed to fundamentally changing the way that business is done in Jefferson City, because if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting more of the same. And more of the same is getting lapped by other conservative states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee, and now even Arkansas is scoring points on us because they have real conservatives in office who aren't beholden to the special interests and the lobbyists. In Jefferson City today, we the people don't have a voice. The agenda of our state government is not the agenda of we the people. That's what I want to change. That's why I'm running to be your next Attorney General. I'd be honored to have your support.
I mean, okay. My crew, my mom is in my crew. You know she's a Trump supporter. We've got a few Trump supporters on the campaign, too. My mom, actually, hi, Mom, if you're watching. My mom used to be a Democrat her whole life. She's an immigrant to this country, actually from Israel. She served in the Yom Kippur War there. And as you can imagine, a woman who's doing that at that time, that was a big deal. And she came to this country, voted for Democrats up until, she saw this Obama guy, right? And so she's like, okay, I like what he has to say. And then started getting a little disenchanted with a lot of the words not translating to policy here in Missouri especially, and especially when it came to making healthcare more affordable, okay? So this is where her path is going. She then starts to listen to this Bernie Sanders guy, really likes what he has to say. And all of a sudden, he's gone, and then she starts listening to Donald Trump. And I'm seeing this every day. I'm watching. I'm like, what's going on? Well, he's interesting. He's got some things to say. So she's a Donald Trump supporter right now. We have a few others on the campaign, too. But let me tell you why. So as you can tell, I'm also running for Attorney General tonight. My name's Elad Gross. I'm a former Assistant Attorney General of the state of Missouri. I swear I am not skipping high school finals right now to be with you. I'm a real attorney, and I've been doing this for a little bit. But there are a lot of folks who are just really fed up with how our government really doesn't seem to be serving us right now. I have more than one client. My job is to sue the government. That's what I do. I used to defend it. Now I'm suing it because we've got a lot of problems in Missouri's government right now. Before I was an attorney, one of the big reasons I became a lawyer, I was actually working in North St. Louis City. So I'm from St. Louis. My wife is here, Tasha. Hello, hi. And if you've seen that little dog running around, that's Liberty Bell. She also lives with us right now in St. Louis City on the south side. And I was working there with kids. And I've been doing that for about 15 years now. And the number of times that I would talk to a third grader who would tell me, well, what's the point of me doing my homework? Nobody cares what I do here. That's how our kids are growing up in our state in so many parts of Missouri right now. Missouri, after the Civil War, had cutting-edge public schools led by progressive Republicans. After the Civil War, there were people from all over the world coming to Missouri to see what we were doing here. And I believe so strongly that we can have a Missouri that serves all of us once again. I believe so strongly with my heart. I have grown up here. My entire life I've been here. I've been serving the public my entire career. This is so important for all of us to understand that when we start to leave some of us behind, we're leaving all of us behind. We owe it to the people of Missouri to bring good, strong, thoughtful leadership back to Jefferson City. That's what this has to be about. When I was serving, so after I left the Attorney General's office, one of the first jobs I volunteered for was as a special public defender. The reason being, our public defender system was so overloaded that they had to have volunteers come on to take on cases because they couldn't handle them. And the kid that they gave me to represent was 18 years old. She was locked up in the St. Louis City Workhouse, a jail that has since been closed because of the conditions there. And when she was there and they gave me the case, she'd been there for 7 months because she couldn't afford $100 in bond to get out. $100 in bond. And she lost 7 months of her life in that jail system. I went there and I got this case. It was this small. and there was a fight. For those of you who know St. Louis and the Loop, and there was a bunch of kids there, and she saw what happened. And police asked her the next day, would you come in and tell us what happened? Absolutely. And when she did, she wasn't given an attorney. She was charged with a serious felony, and she was put in jail. And when I came and saw her, shortly after I was in that jail, the prosecutors dropped that. They didn't even have charges against her. She'd been in jail for 15 days without any charges against her whatsoever. They'd already dismissed it. Folks like that deserve to be represented by our Attorney General.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's been 5 minutes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
oh, excuse
okay.
me. Well,
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit more about that too, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to have interrupted.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to be fair.
That's fine. Sorry.
All right.
Should have been watching.
No, you're good. It was supposed to be the introductions of yourself, and the second 5 minutes would be why you're running. So, Mr. Bailey, you can say why you're running, and then you two can introduce yourselves. Sound like a plan?
Sounds great.
All right. You also get 5 minutes.
Yes.
So I'll keep an eye on time. But
I will watch that thing
that
like
thing.
a hawk now. Yes.
And I'm getting my because I was looking at that, but I'll just go ahead and
Yes.
that way you hear a ding.
That's my fault.
No
I
worries.
apologize.
Okay,
Sorry.
I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, I'm a conservative warrior with a record of fighting and winning for freedom, for safety and prosperity. And like I said, I want my kids to be able to enjoy that same thing here in the state of Missouri. I'm invested. This is home. This is where I'm raising my 4 children. I want your children, your grandchildren to be able to enjoy those same principles of freedom, safety, and prosperity. If we don't have actual warriors with a proven track record to demonstrate that they're up for that job, we're going to lose those things, folks. Those principles are under attack. The woke left has infiltrated our public institutions. It's infiltrated our state government. It's infiltrated mass media. If we don't fight back against those things, and if we don't keep fighting and winning to protect Missouri, we will lose those principles and we will lose our state. And I'm not going to let that happen, not on my watch.
So now I'm introducing myself, or I'm talking about why I'm running? I'll do a little bit of both. You know, it was really funny. When we first went up to the U.S. Supreme Court for President Trump back in December, Politico, this Washington, D.C. left-wing rag, wrote an article about the case we were litigating. And they described how deranged Jack Smith, the special counsel, had hired this lawyer named Michael Dreeben. And they said that Michael Dreeben was the greatest lawyer in the history of the world. He's argued 100 cases before the Supreme Court. He was a legal advisor to Mueller during the Russia collusion investigation. They made Dreeben out to be this implacable force. And then they said that Trump hired 3 guys from Missouri, me and my colleagues John Sauer and Michael Talent. And they set us up to be the fall guys in this equation. 2 days later, we beat Michael Dreeben 9-0 on a cert before judgment motion before the U.S. Supreme Court. And we were sitting there when the Colorado ballot access case several months later came up. And our team won that case 9-0 as well. I'm a conservative fighter with a track record of racking up actual accomplishments for the conservative movement. At every stage in my career, I've fought for conservative causes. I've fought for what we believe in. I've fought for the Constitution of the United States of America. And I'm running to be the next Attorney General because I don't just want to fight for your rights. I want to win for your rights. I want to build the greatest Attorney General's office in this country. When people look around the country, I don't want them to be talking about Texas. I don't want them to be talking about Florida. I don't want them to be talking about any of the other great AGs in this country, Iowa, Indiana, whoever. I want them to talk about how Missouri is the model, how if you're fighting for conservative principles, if you're fighting for constitutional rights, Missouri is who you have to be looking at if you're looking for something to emulate. And I think we had that, under Eric Schmidt. I think Eric Schmidt did an outstanding job. I want to build the best team this state has ever seen in the AG's office, and I want to make sure that we are a national leader in fighting for the Constitution, in fighting for conservative principles, in fighting for the future of our republic. And that's why I'm running to be your next Attorney General.
Well, hi, everybody. I'll introduce myself now. My name's Elad Gross. I am in the Bible somewhere. I am the son of the son of the son of the son of somebody. Really exciting part of the Bible. It means God is eternal, all in those 4 little letters right there. I grew up in St. Louis. I went to, right after school, actually, while I was in law school, I interned with the U.S. Department of Justice on their organized crime unit and the Attorney General's office. Loved the Attorney General's office. So it was the only job I applied to out of law school. Thank goodness I got in. My first day as an assistant attorney general, I was in the labor division, which does workers' compensation, labor rights, all these kinds of things. And I get there, most attorneys, when you pass the bar, you go get sworn in, you go to the Supreme Court in Jefferson City. And I did not have that opportunity. Instead, they took me across the street in St. Louis to an administrative law judge. The administrative law judge swore me in. I got a little cupcake, which was really fun. Went back to the office, and everybody was real happy. And all of a sudden, my legal assistant starts bringing in huge pallets of case files. And I'm looking at her. I said, "What are those?" And she said, "Those are your cases." I'm like, wow, those sure look like a lot. And she said, yes, there are 1,300 of them, and they're all yours. Welcome to public service of the state of Missouri. So, I went from the labor division to what was called the litigation division shortly after that. They gave me 60 cases there. I thought that was a great deal. Wow, was I making a bad trade there, time limit-wise. But no, I ended up having one of the busiest litigation dockets in the state of Missouri, litigated in state and federal courts, still do that today, mostly practice civil rights law. And another big area of my focus is on Missouri's Sunshine Law, which is a law that allows you and I to see what our government is doing with our money and to participate in government meetings. I have taken those types of cases, actually, in fact, all the way to Missouri Supreme Court against some folks in our current government, and won a unanimous decision there protecting our right to see what our government is doing. That case is called Gross v. Parson. I'm the gross guy on that one. I'm very passionate about public service, as you can tell, and very, very much a fan of all of the work that Missouri's Attorney General's office can do. And there's certainly a lot of ideas I have for that, and happy to answer some questions about that too. But no, Missouri is where I was born. I will be buried here at some point, despite sometimes my wife is like, well, what if we travel over here? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tasha. But no, it's a wonderful state. It's given me so many blessings in my life, and I have committed my life to serving the people of Missouri. So I thank you all for coming, and thank you for letting me rant sometimes too. And I watched the clock this time, and I did it. Look at that. I did. Thank you.
Great job, guys. Okay. Sorry, I should have like a little something here. So I'm going to mix these questions up, and then we're going to just kind of pick on them randomly.
Do the different colors mean anything?
No. This is all the cards I had.
Okay.
Oh,
there's more.
There's some more.
Wait.
Yes. So I don't know that we're going to get through all of them. But we're going to give you guys about a minute to answer each question, and we'll go ahead and start with Attorney General Bailey. For or against transgender in women's bathrooms and locker rooms, for or against transgender women in sports? So it's basically the same question.
100% against transgender individuals participating in sports or being present in any private facility like a bathroom or a locker room that doesn't align with their biological gender. God made man and woman. That's it. That's objective reality. I read it in the Bible. I know it's true. Look, it is unhealthy to deny objective reality in the same way it's unhealthy to deny the law of gravity. And we know God doesn't make mistakes. We know he put everybody in the right body that he wants them to be in. So that's an easy one.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Bailey or Scharf?
Yeah, against and against. But I think it's really important that we talk about where this is coming from. When you look at all of these radical theories that we're seeing increasingly in our schools, in society, it comes from the radical left. It comes from critical theories. It comes from Marxism. Ultimately, that's what we're dealing with. And we've allowed society to become so unmoored from objective reality, from the idea that there's right and wrong, truth and falsity, that these sorts of theories have infected the public consciousness in a way that's just deeply, deeply dangerous. And I think that we have to think about that in terms of the fights that we're taking on, in terms of looking at where we're looking to go as a society. I said that wrong. in terms of where we're looking to go as a society, we need to be thinking about what's actually the root cause of things like the transgender panic going on in America. And the same way a generation ago you had social contagion with respect to bulimia among teenagers, you've had social contagion with respect to any number of previous movements. This all speaks to a much deeper social ill. And I think we need political leadership that understands that and is willing to take it on. Sorry, Angela.
No, you're fine. I'm just trying to be respectful of everybody's time. Hold on, let me get this going again. So, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gross.
So, I think it's really important to look at what's happening in Missouri. There were a lot of bills that were targeting transgender kids. Do you know how many were playing sports in Missouri? 10? And we spent all of that time talking about this issue instead of suing scammers or protecting our health care rights or all these other things. And there's a reason that this issue is coming up. It's because it's divisive, and they're bringing it to this state to divide us against each other instead of us looking at our leadership and the crap that they're not doing for us right now. Sorry. And that's a big problem. I believe in small government, and I think small government needs to stay out of our families as much as possible. I trust local communities to make those decisions. I trust local families to do that, and that's my view on the role of government generally. It's very surprising to see how big government is getting in our lifetimes, right? It's scary. I mean, it's absolutely scary for me to see this.
All right, Mr. Scharf, we're going to start answering this question. In 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court ended race-based programs for admission. Can this decision be used to end DEI programs in Missouri public schools?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually involved in the early stages of the case that did that, SFFA v. Harvard. It's a landmark Supreme Court decision. I'm proud of both helping build the Supreme Court that gave us that decision and also working on the actual litigation there. I'll say this. Historically, under Supreme Court precedent, college admissions were supposed to be the exception, that the rule was supposed to be race neutrality with respect to every other aspect of public life in America. And instead, folks on the left flipped that on its head, that they said that basically because race-based preferences were allowed in the college admissions context, that suddenly they should be allowed in every context. And even in our own State Department of Education today, there are racial set-asides and unlawful, unconstitutional racial programs that nobody in our state government seems particularly committed to tackling. So yes, absolutely. I believe the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution sets up race blindness as the constitutional standard which cannot be violated by public actors of any sort in this country, and I will fight every day to ensure that race blindness is the rule with respect to all government programs and in society.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gross?
Could you read the question again?
Oh, sorry. Let me...
That's okay. I mean, you can take my time doing it, too.
No, you're going to get fair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm fair. I try to be fair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court ended race-based programs for admissions. Can this decision be used to end DEI and DEI programs in Missouri public schools?
Well, from a legal standpoint, I'm not 100% sure if that, I mean, I don't think any of us are right now because litigation is still going to be ongoing on this issue. So from a legal standpoint, not so sure that you can take that specific case and apply it down to do what we're discussing. If you're talking about racial quotas, that should be illegal in America, and there's lots of cases on that issue right now. So I agree with that. But for diversity programs or equity programs, inclusion programs, including a lot of large companies that are based here in Missouri too, and parts of our government, those aren't necessarily barred by that, and especially depending on how, like if you're saying we're only hiring, 2 people who are white or black or whatever, and you're making those, that would be illegal. But that's not the system that should be in place, and if they are, then they absolutely should be sued, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But there is value, and I think everybody's found it, in having diverse opinions and backgrounds, helping make policy in our government and other institutions.
Thank you so much. All right, Attorney General?
Yeah, look, DEI programs, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's woke, radical nonsense for racism. We're not going to stand for it in the state of Missouri. It's absolutely illegal. It's also immoral. How dare anybody tell minority students that they're not good enough, that they can't meet a standard? How dare they pander to those kids and indoctrinate them into thinking that they can't live up to the same standard as everyone else. It's illegal. It's immoral. Supreme Court fixed that problem. We're going to continue to pursue legal action against it.
What should be the role? This would be Mr. Gross would start the answer. Sure. What should be the role of the Attorney General in Missouri?
I think that the Attorney General of the state of Missouri should be your lawyer. That attorney should not be the lawyer for the governor, the attorney for the government, trying to push all of these issues that way. You should be represented by your government. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, throughout the state don't know who the Attorney General even is. And, having practiced for a little bit here, it's a big red flag when you don't know the name of your own attorney. That's an issue, and that shouldn't be the issue here. I think the Attorney General should be holding town halls all throughout our state on a regular basis, not just during election season. Your voice should be heard in our government at every stage of that. I think the Attorney General needs to get back to doing what we've done here in our state really well. Suing scammers, making sure to protect our families, going after, heck, we're still like the top state in the country for puppy mills for 12 years in a row. I mean, what are we doing? That office can do so much for the people of our state. And we really, look, I'm running for Attorney General to sue a whole bunch of scammers, including some of those in our government right now, too.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bailey?
I'm up?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, look, the Constitution exists to protect us from the government. So defending our constitutional rights is paramount from the Attorney General's office. We need to be making sure we're an active participant in the criminal justice system to lock the bad guys up, make sure they stay locked up, and find justice for victims. We need to support freedom, safety, and prosperity. And those are all three principles we can reinforce through litigation from the Attorney General's office.
You had time to spare. All right, Mr. Scharf.
The Attorney General's responsibility is protecting the rights of Missourians, whether that's their constitutional rights, whether that's their right to be free of violent crime, or whether that's the right, I believe, to be free from government corruption. I think we need to root out corruption in Jefferson City. I think we need to hold the Jefferson City deep state accountable, and I'm going to fight every single day to do that as your next Attorney General.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure out what this question is.
You got a few others,
Yeah, I'm
sorry, whoever.
Sorry.
I really apologize. I'm sorry. But you're done. Yeah. Yeah, right.
Would any of the candidates support an anti-corruption initiative petition to help public officials, to hold public officials accountable? So we'll start with Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it all the time. We saw it with the Soros-backed prosecutor in the city of St. Louis who was unlawfully refusing to do her job because she was bought and paid for by George Soros and out-of-state money. There need to be more and better tools at our disposal to hold those sorts of wrongdoers accountable. And we need to be able to take bold action to have transformative conservative change. Status quo won't work anymore. It's failed us in the past. That's why we need bold leadership. And that's what we've demonstrated since the time I've been in office, and we'll continue to push forward.
Thank you, sir.
Angela, can you repeat the question just
Yes.
one more time?
Would any of the candidates support an anti-corruption initiative petition to hold public officials accountable?
Yeah. Our state needs much, much tougher anti-corruption laws and anti-conflict of interest laws. I think many of our politicians in Jefferson City are deeply corrupted by the lobbyist gifts that they take, and by the special lobbyist contributions that they take, and by the special interests who have paid to put them in office. I think until we change that dynamic, we're going to continue getting the lousy government we've been getting. And I'd support an initiative petition. I'd support legislation. I'd support any measures that would help put the interests of ordinary Missourians first and foremost and kick the lobbyists and the special interests to the back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd want to see it, but I don't know that we need more laws. I think we need more enforcement. I think we got plenty of laws in Missouri already. I think these folks are taking us for a ride. As Attorney General, I will start an anti-corruption, a public corruption unit at the Attorney General's office that will be focused on dealing with these issues specifically. As Attorney General, I will fully enforce Missouri's Sunshine Law so you can see what your government is doing with your money. That is a big change that we need at the Attorney General's office right now. We need to be representing individuals who are having issues with their government that's not letting them participate, and that will be a big, big issue that we will deal with at the Attorney General's office when we get there.
Just a reminder, we're trying to keep it to what you would do and not what's being currently done or trying to point anything out. The next question, what are we going to do about gambling machines? And we'll go ahead and start with Mr. Scharf.
Yeah, you drive anywhere in the state of Missouri, you will see thousands and thousands and thousands of slot machines that I believe are blatantly illegal. I've read Missouri law. They're illegal. They shouldn't be there. And yet they're in almost every gas station you'll go into. They're all over the place. So I believe that the Missouri law on gambling machines, should be enforced, which requires that if there is an illegal gambling machine and the Attorney General's office has enforcement over Missouri gambling law, those machines must be confiscated and destroyed. And I'd really like your suggestions on creative ways that we could blow up and destroy those gambling machines.
Yeah. There's a great one right now. If you YouTube it, they crush it with one of the backhoes. It's pretty great. Yeah, so go watch it. Yeah, these things are illegal. We've got to get rid of them. If they want to follow the law, they've got to make the law before they start cheating on everything here too. You see people who are just thinking, right? They're just giving away all of their money in these poor gas stations. And these folks, these machines should not exist in our state. They're absolutely illegal. And another thing is we really need to have strong ethics reforms in our government because we have to make sure that companies that are running these illegal kinds of operations are not then trying to buy those offices that have enforcement authority over those. So we need strong ethics enforcement on this issue too.
Yeah, this issue is a failure of the status quo in Jefferson City. As police investigate those criminal offenses and refer them, you prosecute the criminals, the police seize the evidence, and you destroy it pursuant to a court order, prosecute crimes, and enforce the rule of law.
Nice. Thank you. I like this question. It has really nothing to do with the race or the seat of Attorney General, but this question is, what is God doing in your life right now? You get a minute. I think it's Mr. Scharf first. Am I right? Or is it Elad? Mr. Gross.
I mean, look at us here. Yeah. I mean, look at us. They're all over Missouri, right? And I know there's folks who are divided here on our political issues and whatever else that might be. But it is a beautiful thing to be able to come together with your neighbors, with folks that, you're even running against right now, and to sit here and to have conversations about what our future can look like. I think that if you look around and you want to see something that I think is so important in all of our lives, it's this idea of community and what that can be when we really allow ourselves to see something bigger than just ourselves. And so I'm here today, and it's a blessed day to be here with all of you. So thank you all.
All right, Mr.
Oh, my gosh. So my personal testimony, when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I was indwelt with the Holy Spirit. And I'm guided every day by the divine hand.
Hold on. I'm so sorry. I didn't hit start.
You can have my time.
Sorry.
He's going.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm guided by the Holy Spirit and Scripture. I read the Bible daily, and it helps keep me grounded in my faith, helps guide me along the path that God has chosen for me. That includes surviving some of the toughest fighting in Iraq in 2005, 2006. It includes tough cases at the prosecutor's office. It includes difficulties raising foster children. It includes the challenge I face at the Attorney General's office today. But I know that it's all part of His plan. And if I align my heart with His will, as guided by Scripture and the Holy Spirit, my faith in Christ will allow me to persevere. And it's all part of the sanctification process. I believe in Him who saved us, and that leads me every day in the right direction.
Thank you.
The question was, what is God doing in my life right now? Everything. So I come from a different faith tradition than many of you. I come from an observant Jewish background. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is pray to the Lord. The last thing I do when my head touches the pillow at night is I pray to the Lord. I think God is with us in everything that we do. I think that he has a plan and a destiny for each and every one of us. And I pray to God that I'm following my destiny as he desires. I think confronting the Almighty, confronting that which is infinite in a finite world, is one of the most difficult things that any human being can do. But I think that's ultimately a key task for each and every one of us. So God is deeply important to me. My faith is deeply important to me. And it's an honor to be surrounded by so many other people of faith. That's been one of the most heartening things to me about traveling around the state of Missouri and just seeing the deep and abiding faith that so many people have in God and in the idea that the Almighty has a plan for all of us.
Thank you. All right. As AG, how will you respond to unconstitutional federal laws? Mr. Bailey?
Lawsuits. I wake up every morning and ask myself how I'm going to sue Joe Biden. We've been successful at it, so we're going to keep doing that. Look, there's no sanction in the United States Constitution for 99% of what President Biden is doing. He is absent where needed at our southern border and present where unwanted, unwelcome, and unauthorized to be. That's why these lawsuits are so important, to join like-minded state attorneys general, to lead those coalitions, and to fight back with lawsuits against President Biden's unconstitutional, illegal behavior.
Mr. Scharf?
Yeah, I think we have to sue and we have to win. And I think it's also important that we as a society grapple with the fact that you have bureaucrats and, a lot of Democrats in Washington, D.C., who feel that they don't have to obey the Constitution, that they're not bound by our constitutional order. And I think that's just deeply, deeply dangerous for us as a country. I think the Constitution is more than our founding document. The Constitution is what unites us as a country. The Constitution is what defines us as a republic. And unless each and every American is rowing in the same direction, accepts the Constitution as the binding law of the land, we're in for deep problems ahead. And we can keep playing whack-a-mole with lawsuits, and we should. But I think we also have to think more deeply as a society about how our country has gone so wildly off the path that we should be on.
No excusing necessary. Look, I have sued Democrats. I've sued Republicans for violating our civil liberties. If they do it, we need a watchdog who's going to take them on. It doesn't matter what party it is. It really doesn't. My view is the Attorney General's office shouldn't even be a partisan position. That's my view. I think that we should be hiring an attorney who's going to do a really good job for us. And when you're doing that, you're asking, okay, what has your experience been? Where have you done this litigation before? And what are you going to do for me? Like I said, I believe in a smaller government than what we are seeing today. I don't think it's a Democrat issue. I don't think it's a Republican issue. I just think it's folks in this state who say if they're going to try to do something that is unconstitutional, I think that's what the prompt said. We already know it's unconstitutional. That's going to be a slam dunk case. Let's go get it. But folks, like we here in Missouri have to have our interests protected, and that's what the Attorney General should be doing for us, regardless of party.
Awesome. Goodness. You think I know how to work my phone by now. Sorry.
Hey, I see you working. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. This also is a question for everybody. Have or will you take campaign contributions from groups like Big Pharma? There is a follow-up question. If we have enough time, I'll ask it and I'll place it over here for now.
I ended.
So,
Now am I taking? Yeah.
yes, Mr. Scharf. Thank you. I can't keep it all straight either.
No, and I haven't, and I won't. And I also haven't taken money from any Missouri registered lobbyist, and I won't. I think it's very important that we have public officials who can go about their jobs conflict-free, and that's the attitude I'll take into this position. That's been key to our campaign from day one.
Yeah. Answer is also no, not taking any money from corporate PACs at all. I think the Attorney General should be representing us against a lot of the concentration, bad practices that we're seeing where folks like us are being screwed over while folks with a whole lot of money are making even more money because they're involved in our government right now. We need someone who's going to represent us, and I plan to sue Big Pharma, Big Healthcare, Big everything, because it's about time we get back to smaller everything in America right now.
I'm proud to take support from Missourians who care about Missouri and want to support a Missouri candidate for Missouri Attorney General. And everything that my candidate committee takes in is lawfully accepted, lawfully reported, and we're going to use it to fight for Missourians. Instead of being bought and paid for by lobbyists or special interests, we're going to fight for the people, because that's who I represent.
What is the first thing that you do when presented with a legal issue? And Mr. Elad, I think that's...
Yeah, okay, that's great. All right, first I look up the statute of limitations. It's very important. Put that on your calendar. Hey, look, we do continuing legal education classes on this too. Yeah, I mean, my first thing, especially when I'm meeting with clients or I'm talking to folks, I'm doing educational talks, I try to figure out where people are. I ask them, what are the issues that you want to see addressed? What is happening in your life right now that has brought you to me? And we have a very long discussion about that. After that, that's the time where I'm like, well, you know, here are some of the options that you have. Here's what you can do. I can research a little bit more for you too. But for me, it's never been about, oh, how much money can I make off of this person? My wife will attest to that very much. Tells me I need to be making a little more money sometimes. But it's really about how do I best serve the person that I'm seeing. I did the same thing when I was an assistant attorney general for the state too. Some of the proudest moments in my career were saying I'm here on behalf of the people of the state of Missouri. So I think we need a lot more of that individualized focus on folks who are coming to the office, asking for help, and making sure that they can get it from the attorney general.
Yeah, I think you got to pray for guidance, pray for wisdom. You know, what did Solomon pray for? Wisdom from God, wisdom for discernment. Again, I'm guided by the Holy Spirit and by Scripture, and I look for legal answers in the statutes and the case law. And I'm guided by our constitutional principles. I think the text, history, and tradition of our founding document is sacred to who we are as a national people and guides every decision we make as I'm Attorney General.
Yeah, it's funny Elad mentioned statutes of limitations. Those are timeline barriers beyond which you can't bring a case. One of my first bosses when I was a young lawyer who didn't know all that much, a guy named Lou Bonacorsi, said to me on day one, I can fix any problem that you make, but if you blow a statute of limitations, you're on your own. And that's always stuck with me. But yeah, Andrew said it pretty well. You look to the statutes. You look to what the law actually says. This is Justice Scalia textualism. You read the law. And then you read case law. You see how other courts have interpreted a given provision before, and you proceed from there. What I don't do is make it up as we go along, which is what a lot of folks on the left think the law is. Just because you believe something to be true or just because you want something to be true doesn't make it the law. And it's those key canons of interpretation that have guided the originalist and the textualist movements that have led to the conservative jurisprudence revolution that we've seen in the last 3 decades or so. I've been deeply involved with that movement for a long time, and that guides every legal decision, every legal case that I work on and deal with.
Thank you. Well, goodness, we're going to have so many more other questions. All right. Now I lost my train of thought. Who was who was next?
I think Elad went.
I just went.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Mr. Bailey, thank you. You guys need to
We're
keep
gonna
me
do
in
this
check here.
together.
My gosh.
You know, you all can point it out too if you see it, okay? Don't leave us hanging. Come on now. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm trying to get all the questions and the timer and I lose my place. Okay. What is your stance on responsible gun safety measures in Missouri?
Well, I think that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution is the one that makes all the other ones possible. I grew up in a household where we owned guns. We owned guns because we liked hunting, but we also owned guns because it allows us to protect ourselves from the government. And under Article 1, Section 23 of the Missouri Constitution, it is the state's sacred and moral obligation to protect our right to keep and bear arms, ammunition, and accessories. And any entity that tries to pass any legislation in violation of that right is subject to legal attack and strict scrutiny. I believe in the complete and absolute right to keep and bear arms for the defense of you, your family, your property, and your way of life against a tyrannical, despotic government.
Yeah, I mentioned before that I'm Jewish. It's deeply meaningful to me that America is the first country in history since biblical Persia, since the events depicted in the biblical book of Esther, to guarantee its Jews, along with all of its citizens, the right to armed self-defense. I think that's a beautiful statement about our Constitution, about our certainty that our constitutional order will survive, and it's a wonderful guarantee to each and every American that if our government does become tyrannical, that all of us will have the right and the ability to resist it. So what's effective gun control? Good trigger finger. I mean, I don't know how to answer that. But the Second Amendment is deeply meaningful to me personally. If Joe Biden saw the inside of my gun locker, he'd probably send the marshals to lock me up. I think we all should cherish our Second Amendment rights, and I'll always fight for our Second Amendment rights.
Just real quick, I just want to say, if you're seeing me flip through some of these, they're specific to a candidate, and I want to get through questions that are for all of them first, and then if we have time, we'll go to specific candidate questions. So don't think that I'm just trying to throw away questions. And so, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you'd like. So, look, gun violence is a serious issue all across the country right now. We know it, right? Even given the protections. And I propose starting Missouri's first civil rights division to protect all of our civil liberties. I've also had children who have been shot and killed, including one not very long ago in his backyard in front of his two sisters the day before he was supposed to start first grade. And I've got, lots of proposals right now. There are ways to deal with violence without us having to add new laws and new rules on top of everything. And we can do it from the Attorney General's office right now. One of them is to make sure that we are prosecuting when we have to, because that has to happen. We have to set expectations and make sure the dangerous folks aren't in our communities anymore. But we have to prevent violence before it happens, because by the time someone is shot and killed, you have a dead person, you have a broken family. And so my proposal is one that would deal with these issues before they become violent crimes in our state. And the Attorney General's office is such a great place to have a statewide plan to reduce violence in our communities.
Thank you. All right. Who's next? All right. Thank you. Thank you for your help. All right. What do you think of separation of church and state?
What do I think of separation of church and state? That's a term that comes from the Danbury letter. That's a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to, I think it was the Danbury Baptist congregation, Separation of church and state is not what's in our Constitution. Our Constitution has two provisions relating to religion. First Amendment, one is the Free Exercise Clause, one's the Establishment Clause. I believe in the Free Exercise Clause. That's deeply important to me, especially as a religious minority. I also believe in the Establishment Clause. I believe that the government should not establish a church. That having been said, I do not think that either the Free Exercise Clause or the Establishment Clause prohibit in any way, shape, or form faith from playing a deeply important role in public life. And I think that in the 60s and 70s, our country went totally out of control, banishing the Ten Commandments from classrooms, prohibiting voluntary prayer in public schools. Fortunately, I'm very proud of the fact that because of the work the conservative legal movement did, because of the Supreme Court that we have today, we are finally beginning to protect religious liberty in the public square once again.
Thank you.
I support it. I think that, and I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. This is how our country has worked. We have to prevent persecution of folks in the United States of America, and that's a big deal. That's what's happened here. I believe in a small government. I don't believe in a government that is instructing you and your families on how you should live your lives. And I want to keep government the heck out of religion. And that should be it. That we should have a separation there. Now, obviously, faith will play a very important role in folks as we are electing them. We're choosing them. They are making decisions on behalf of us. They're representing us. But I don't want government involved in our religions at all, as far as we can get that done. I believe in a smaller government, and I don't think that we should be expanding it any further than we've got right now.
My Christian faith guides everything that I do, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I'll never apologize for it. Nobody else should either. We're gonna fight to protect religious liberty. This country went off the rails when we took God out of the public square. We took the Bibles out of the schools. We took Jesus out of people's hearts, and we started teaching this woke, radical nonsense is nothing short of sin indoctrination. And we've got to fight back with the Word of God and the power of the Holy Spirit.
Thank you. Sorry. Interesting question. What do you think of the Israeli and Palestine situation? All right, we'll start with Mr.
1 minute for this? Wow, folks, look what I'm already done.
It's done. No.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a heartbreaking situation when I see folks. I mean, look, there are people dying because of a war, and that is always a tragic situation. I think that region needs a lot of different leadership. Hamas is a terrorist organization. If that thing exists in that area, they will not stop at all. This is what they were designed to do. And they're hurting Palestinian people there too. They're launching rockets at humanitarian convoys. I watch this a lot. Like I said, my mom is from there. We've known folks who, they're gone. They're gone now. And there's a lot of work that we need to do to bring peace to that region. I think the United States of America should play a very big role in that. I don't know if the Attorney General's office can. Maybe you could tell us, do you have a new foreign policy issue or something? But look, I think that we do need to protect our rights here as much as possible so that we have the ability to be leaders in the world on issues like this, that folks look to America for leadership here. But as much as we can get help to folks there, I think that's extremely important for us to do.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bailey.
Find and kill the terrorists. It's that simple. Find and kill the terrorists. Eliminate the threat. I know how this thing ends because I read the book of Revelation. But the state of Israel has a right to defend itself and a right to exist. And they need to root out the terrorists and go block by city block and exterminate the enemy. That's how you win a war.
Yeah, I have family in the IDF. I have family who are serving today, both on the northern border and down in the Gaza envelope. It's a deeply personal issue for me, and I agree completely with Andrew. Israel should win, Hamas should lose, the terrorists should die, and we'd all be better off. And I'd note that we didn't have this sort of conflict in the Middle East under President Donald J. Trump. We had real deterrence as a country. People respected us abroad, or at least respected our strength abroad. And under Joe Biden, we've seen wars break out in both Ukraine and in the Middle East. We've seen Americans attacked all over the country. It's outrageous, and it's got to stop. And that's why I think we need to put President Trump back in the White House next November.
Thank you. We're winding down. We just have a few more minutes. Do you believe the 2020 presidential election was stolen? And we'll start with Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely stolen. The left stole that election by changing the rules of the game at the 11th hour. They're going to try to steal this one by silencing our voices on big tech social media platforms, by stifling us in the mainstream media, and by packing the polling places with criminal, illegal aliens that shouldn't be here in the first place. We've got to fight back. I've seen what a secure election looks like because I participated in one in 2005 in Iraq. And if we can do it overseas in 2005, by God, we can do it here in the United States of America in 2024.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was stolen. It was rigged. Call it whatever you will. In the 2020 election, out of 159 million ballots cast, over 100 of them were earlier absentee. It's absolutely unprecedented in American history. Many of those ballots were cast totally extra legally, whether it was a lack of signature verification, whether it was the late submissions in Pennsylvania. You can go on and on and on. I'm currently defending President Trump in courtrooms in Georgia, in front of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Colleagues of mine have now been indicted in Arizona for having the temerity to say what we just said on this stage, that the 2020 election was stolen. And if our First Amendment rights do not extend that far, if we can't stand up and call into question the results of a highly questionable election anymore, that's the end of the First Amendment. That's the end of the constitutional order. That's the end of the democratic aspects of our constitutional republic.
No. I was answering the question.
We'll make this the last question because we need to wrap up. What are 3 things you will sue the federal government for illegal overreach? I forgot who went first.
I think it's you. I just
Elad?
ended.
Mr. Gross?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind. I can
Yes,
go first.
go for it.
Yeah, I think that we need to sue the government right now, the federal government right now, for what they have done to our state with nuclear waste. Right now, in where I'm from, in North St. Louis County, in Weldon Spring, in St. Charles, since 1949, our government knew that they were poisoning people in our state. And they hid it because they didn't want us to panic. I helped some of the mothers who live there, and now there's cancer all throughout, generations there. I helped them uncover evidence of what was happening, records from our government. We need to sue the Department of Energy. I don't know what we're waiting for. We need to sue the Department of Energy to protect our families in our state. So that'll be the first thing that I will do against the federal government as your Attorney General. It's about time that we hold them accountable for what they have done to Missourians.
All right, Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, look, right to free speech, right to free exercise of religion, right to keep and bear arms. We have to secure those strategic objectives in the fight for the soul of America, or we will absolutely lose our country. Without those 3 rights, we have nothing left. Secure those first, build out from there. We can do this. We can fight and win to protect our right to say and hear what we please, to worship as we please, and to protect our homes, our families, and our property.
Thank you. Mr. Scharf?
I'm hopeful that by the time I take office, President Donald J. Trump will be back in the White House, and then I don't think we'll be suing the federal government for much of anything. I'll answer a different question. I think when you look at this state, when you look at the chaos on our streets and in our schools, when you look at the issues that we're having at the border, I think a lot of this has been constructed by left-wing dark money nonprofits. And I think we as a state need to be using the powers that the Attorney General's office has under nonprofit law and under consumer protection law to be pursuing those groups who have done so much damage to our state and our country.
Thank you guys so much. Let's give them a round of applause. They did fantastic. And give yourselves a round of applause for coming out and asking some great questions.